this hurt me a lot. It did hurt me. The Canton police were taking a lot of heat, right? The police in general, and it hurt me personally because I wanted to put my eyes on it. I knew where the story where from Aiden Carney was going, but I needed to bite it. I needed to touch it. I needed to study it. And by God, I had to say, I walked away saying, this is not right. This investigation was done horribly. And it turns out it was probably done on purpose.
Okay, so just so like again, I'm an amateur on this case. We have our victim who is a Boston cop, John O'Keefe, January 29, 2022. He's 46 years old and he dies allegedly by being run over, or ostensibly, let's use that word, right? And then eventually his girlfriend Karen Reed is arrested for his murder.
That's
That's
correct.
the official story, but what is it that you think actually happened?
Okay. So I just have to get into their story a little bit and then try
Sure.
to chip away at it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So allegedly, after a night of drinking, I mean, they went to two bars and they met up with the crew that they ultimately were supposed to meet back at the house where this incident occurred. So
Okay.
they started out, I don't know what time, probably 8 o'clock, 7:30, drinking at one bar, then moved to another bar right across the street from this other establishment called the Waterfall Bar and Grill.
Okay.
There you had John and Karen, right? You had at Brian Albert and his wife Nicole, Brian Higgins, who's an FBI ATF agent. You had
Yep.
Chris and Julie Albert and a few other people there. Okay. After about maybe 2 or 3 hours more there at 12 o'clock, there was a birthday party going on for Brian Albert Jr. Okay. This is the son of the sergeant from
Okay.
the Boston Police Department. Okay. So you got John's a Boston cop, Brian's a Boston cop, but they didn't really know each other, right? They heard of each other. Brian was one of these legends in the Boston Police Department.
Okay.
So my understanding was they were just getting acquainted with each other. And I have source information that said they probably just met each other 6 or 7 days before he ended up dying. Literally face to face, handshake, photographs where they met at a bar in Canton, and 6 days later he's dead. So the decision was made to go over to this residence to basically wish the son happy birthday, have a nightcap, and call it a night.
Okay.
So that's how they ended up at the waterfall. I mean, at the
But
Brian's.
all of these couples, they had just come together just socially. That's the plan. That's
Well, okay. So Karen and John lived close by this Chris Albert and his wife Julie Albert.
all
They
right.
lived two houses away from each other in
Okay.
Canton. Right? They subsequently moved prior to this incident happening, but they moved. They still stayed in Canton. Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, lived in the same vicinity as John and Karen. They had a friendship. All right. So it was actually Karen and John who were kind of the outsiders to Brian Albert. But they met that day. They met that evening.
Okay.
So he said, "Hey, come on over and we'll whatever they said to get them over there." And Karen, at first, was game. I think she said, witnesses said to the Chris Albert, he's a pizzeria guy. She said, "Hey, Chris, why don't you make some pizzas for the after party?" But it didn't happen. But it showed that she was initially game to go to Brian Albert's residence.
All right.
They truck over to Brian Albert's place, and sometime between leaving the waterfall, getting to the residence of Brian Albert, Karen decides, listen, I'm not going in. We got a blizzard coming. Maybe there was some words in the car. John gets out of the car. Now, this is where it gets edgy. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts saying John got out of the car because there was an argument. And because Karen was so drunk, right, that she pulls up, this is what they're saying, 61 feet forward, and then guns the car in reverse 61 feet to a speed of 24 miles an hour and hits John, a,
That's the
a professional
official.
police
That's
officer.
the charge. Okay.
That's the charge. Okay. We are now seeing. Okay, so the charge is that. So if you look at his, well, we're getting ahead of each other, right? So then she takes off, goes home, goes to bed, and wakes up at like say 4:30 in the morning. John's nowhere to be found. She's making phone calls. She calls one of the persons that went. Her name is Jen McCabe. She was at the party too. I forgot about her. I don't know how the hell I forgot about her.
All
Jen
right.
and Matt McCabe were at the waterfall too. They
All
ended
right.
up at the party. And she calls up Jen McCabe and she says, Jen, John's not home. Do you know where he's at? Right? Now, instead of saying to Karen, no, he should be with you because you guys never came in. She says, hold on. And she puts the phone down, calls another person. Okay. Then she calls Karen back. And the plan was made to go out and find John. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, Karen departs. As she's leaving the garage, she backs into John's Traverse.
And that
Right.
is the video that we watched from like News Nation. You were
From
on News
right.
Nation. Yeah. With okay.
Exactly. And she takes off. And then she, in Karen's statement, she's closest to the bars. So she went back to the bar area just for whatever reason. She went back to the bar area. Listen, she's distraught. Probably had a few cocktails in her at this time, right? Probably maybe a little, I want to say hungover, but, a little foggy.
Yeah.
She looks around. The two bars are close to each other. And then she beelines it all the way across town to Jen McCabe's house. At that time, Jen McCabe is there with another friend who was not at the party. But the other friend, her name is Kerry Roberts, she knows John from back in high school. They went to the prom together.
All
They used to
right.
live in a neighborhood together. It's very convoluted. I'm trying to get there in 10
Yeah.
minutes
Yeah.
for
No, it's
everybody.
fine.
So so here's the crazy thing. So Jen and Karen get in Karen's car. Jen's driving Karen's car. And Kerry Roberts is following. Instead of going directly to 34 Fairview, which is like closest to Jen McCabe's house, they go all the way back to John O'Keefe's residence, which is at One Meadows Drive, all the way on the other end of town, closer to the Stoughton line in Massachusetts. And the claim was they're supposed to look for John if he came home. Okay. So then they all get into Kerry Roberts' vehicle. So you had Kerry driving, you got Jen in the passenger front, and Karen in the back. Okay.
All right.
Before they leave, Karen goes, look at my taillight. I got a cracked taillight. And Jen goes, how'd you crack it? She says, I hit something. I hit something. And she hit the car because it's on video.
Yeah.
But this is the type of thing. So they all take off and they go right back to the scene of the party. As they turn onto the street, Karen Reed is making another desperate attempt to call John on his cell phone.
Okay.
And at that time, the cell phone of John picks up and says, hey, I'm not available. Leave me a message. And at that point, Karen looks to the left and she sees John's body on the ground. She drops the phone. And this is critical. She drops the phone, but she didn't click it off. It's recording 4 minutes of what happened next.
All right.
She gets out of the car and she's screaming. You can hear this screaming, John, John, John. Anyways, they find the body. The body has injuries from the neck up. His hands are swollen, like they have boxes, fractures. The back of his hands are all bruised up. He's got looks like a broken nose. He's got black. His eyes are swollen and black and blue. He's bleeding from the mouth, right? And they try to do CPR. He's covered in blood and vomit, all right? And they try to do CPR. Jen McCabe gets on the phone and calls 911. The cops get there. And then the next thing, the EMS gets there. They work on John. They take him away. And he's now at the hospital. So the Canton cops were the first ones on the scene.
Was he alive there?
According to the first responder, he was unresponsive and not breathing. Now, they're doing CPR. Allegedly, the Commonwealth says he's out there at 12:30 to 6 o'clock. If he's in 15-degree weather for that long, he's not going to be alive, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
The other theory is a little different. But according to the first responder, and I heard a doctor not too long ago, they may have heard some lung airway stuff, but that could be the stethoscope picking up stuff maybe from compressions or because they intubated him, right? They put a
Yeah.
device, so they could have. Personally, I'm thinking he was DOA on the scene, but in Massachusetts, they have to get a core body temperature and they have to warm it up to pronounce the decedent dead.